situation here at
Yeah, I
some
know you
point.
got a lot of new visuals on your end. I'll
Yeah,
change it up one time
yeah,
soon
mix it
as
up.
well. Yeah, right.
So here, let me move a little bit here. There we go. So talk about
Yeah,
anxiety-inducing movie, A Quiet Place. Holy shit, man!
yeah,
Like,
right.
and shout out to Frodo. I just want to say, if my cat were in A Quiet Place, it's game over. Like, she's killing us instantly. You know, my cat's
Yeah.
not hanging around like that cat is.
Yeah, that cat was a gangster. So like you're fresh out the theater, like you saw it, within the last hour. Um, and I'm going to say a little something about the Quiet Place experience because, I saw the first one in theaters when it came out, and like seeing a movie that is like 98% silent or quiet, um, is a crazy experience in a theater full of people, right? It's like it makes you like anxious just to even like eat popcorn or like
Yeah,
scratch yourself or something,
yeah.
right? So I went and saw day one last week when it came out, and interestingly enough, like that movie, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe less, is like very active and loud, right? It's based in New York City, and I won't go into detail, but there were some people near me, and I'm not, me, Blake, like I am not confrontational unless it is like necessary.
Warranted, yeah.
And like of all the movies to try to talk through, this is like at the
The
top of the list of
worst
you cannot,
movie.
like you just
Yeah.
cannot. And I get there right at the very beginning of the movie, so it's like I'm sitting down, and then these folks that are really like just right in the little side aisle right near me start chatting, and I'm thinking like my anxiety's building right now thinking about it because I'm like, do I say something? Is anyone else gonna say something? But this cannot continue. Like it just can't.
Right.
So, and I was getting epiphanies as the movie was happening because I did the thing that happens in the movie, which was during a really loud part in the beginning, I walk over there real quick. I'm like, y'all have got to y'all have got to stop talking. And then they're like young girls, like probably 20 somethings year olds.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm gonna be as direct as I can to get it across, But so like
Right.
loud part happens, I'm rushing over there. I'm like, y'all gotta hush it down. And they did.
Nice.
And
Respect to
after
them.
people were thanking me after the film, and I'm like, oh, this is just like,
It's
how is
so
it still?
embarrassing, man.
I hate
So
it because it like
embarrassing for people to do that.
I mean, luckily, like I can detach from that and not let it affect my experience. But like other people I know were just sitting there like, God, if the whole movie is gonna
Right.
be like this, it can't, because like
Right.
again, that movie in particular, you have to shut the fuck up. So like my Letterboxd review is it's a one sentence, like, for the love of God, do not talk during this movie of all movies. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, do you know what you're watching? So
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
that's my spiel
Nice.
on that.
No, that's
I
definitely
had a good
fair.
time though. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is Totally Biased Music. It's Blake and Anthony. And today we have a bit of a departure from the Blake album picks world. So we're doing Back to Black by Amy Winehouse, brief Apple Music intro. 100 Best Albums producer Mark Ronson remembers when Amy Winehouse came in with the lyrics for Back to Black. They were at studio in New York in early 2006, their first day working together. Ronson had given her a portable CD player with the song's piano track, and Winehouse disappeared in the back for about an hour to write. What she reemerged with was masterful, bleak, funny, tough, hopelessly romantic. The chorus, though, kept tripping him up because it didn't rhyme. We only said goodbye with words, I died 100 times. He asked her to change it, but she just gave him a blank look. That's just how it came out. She didn't know how to change it. So, man, it was a blast listening to this album, and I'll get into my thoughts on it in a little bit. But what did you think? Was it your first trip down
Yeah.
Amy Winehouse Lane, or what?
So I've always like admired Amy from afar, not like her style of music. Like Amy is an old soul, and like a soul that was made for the 60s that really came out in the born in the 80s and raised through the 90s. And it's like she was way, I'm not going to say past her time, but again, like she's a square and a round hole of our culture, right? Which is so cool to experience because like this is vintage lounge, dark, emotional, relationship centric music,
Yeah.
not my preferred listening when I'm driving around, but
Yeah.
but definitely has its place in everybody. I think, like what she's singing about are things that everyone can relate to. um so yeah, this is my first go round. Something I do want to mention for the listeners too, and for you, Blake. There's a documentary on the making of this album, and it's a really digestible, less than an hour, documentary. I think it's just called Back to Black, but it's on Amazon Prime. It's excellent, and that quote that you just said, it's in there because they interview the two producers, Mark Ronson and Salam Rami, and that's a cool. This album is really, I think, like, besides Amy is masterful and she is the thing that ties everything together, but it really is an interesting listen when you realize it's like a tale of two producers. There's the Mark Ronson tracks with this band called the Dap Kings, who really give it this kind of soulful lounge vibe, and then the Salam tracks and Amy are very arranged in a way that highlights her voice too. I mean, everything is highlighted by Amy, but
Yeah.
but I had a blast listening to this, and it's not long, so I'm really glad you threw in the B-sides or the bonus disc or whatever,
Yeah.
because she's an amazing human. It's a tragedy, that she was gone way too soon, but like what she did was freaking leave her mark as big as possible, and I think that was kind of a just another thing that led to what was to come. But still, like, what a gem of a human, really.
Yeah. And it's like it's a common theme on this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listening to artists that are unfortunately gone way, way too soon, and it's do you know how old she was when she passed? Because I don't know it off the top of my
Take
head.
a guess.
Was it 27?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds
so,
about
like,
right.
She was 19 when this came out. And
Holy
then,
fuck, was she really?
Yeah. I'm 2006. You'll have to pull up when she died, but I'm almost positive I read or saw that she was 19, at least when she wrote it. But that's another amazing fact of this album, is like how ingrained she is in this. I mean, she wrote everything. She helped arrange the musicians. I mean, she had, of course, like, engineers behind the scenes really cleaned everything up, but like, this is Amy Winehouse, just point blank honesty right out to you.
Yeah.
Which is again such an experience. But like, if you had no idea who this person was, time is irrelevant, because you listen to this album in 2006, you're really being transported 40 years before.
Yeah.
But it really does hold up for eternity. So, like, again, I think
dude, so timeless, timeless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's funny is I went to LA. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and we went to the Grammy Museum. And the Grammy Museum at the time was having like an Amy Winehouse exhibit, basically, where the entire floor was all Amy Winehouse, her music, her outfits, they had a theater playing like just clips of her and like her accepting her Grammy and all this stuff. And they had handwritten notes from her and all this really cool stuff. And like, obviously, like, I've dabbled in Amy Winehouse, I've listened to her, but I didn't know. I wish I had been this deep into Back to Black as I am now when I went to that museum, because like I had not fully embraced myself into Amy until this episode. And dude, I was just like, I hate to sound like a hipster fanboy, but I'm just blown away at how good it is and how great she is. Like, her voice is just, it's silky smooth. It's fucking honey with some nice tea. It's so perfect. And her sound is just, I don't know. I kept trying to like find scenarios where I could picture listening to Amy, right? Like, is it a
go back in time?
Yeah, is it a 1940s like bar where I see myself listening to this? Is it a 1960s music festival? Like, where does she fit? And like, her dynamic, her range is so interesting because she fits in all of those places, right? And she fits in today's musical standards, right? There's a scenario to listen to her now, and I don't know, her voice is beautiful, and if she really was 19 when she fucking wrote this, that's crazy to me, because it's so deep, right? Like it's so
Mhm.
much, it's so introspective and powerful in a way that it reminds me a lot of like, you know, I think Nas was 17 when he wrote Illmatic, and granted Nas's mother was a teacher, so it's, I mean, he was well versed and very literate at a young age, but that's kind of the parallel I drew here. She's so intelligent emotionally and mentally for her age at the time of making this, that it's just like you would have never thought that a teenager had written something like this. So
Yeah.
it was really great to listen to and go down this avenue. And I've been playing it like nonstop. And Amanda, like, she's a big fan of Amy as well. And I texted her because I was listening to it at work. I texted her, I was like, holy shit, this album is fucking good. She was like, yeah, where have you been? Like, this
Yeah.
is a
Right.
well-known
hmm
fact, dude. So
Yeah.
I've just been riding around listening to it nonstop. So it's been great, man.
Yeah, and I'll correct myself because I have a side joke with a friend off podcast that like my math in real time is garbage now. But so 27 when she died, and it looks like she this album came out 5 years before she died.
So late
So do
20s.
the math. Yeah, exactly. It's like 22
So
maybe.
she was early
Yeah,
20, yeah, early
yeah.
20s, 22.
But still, like coming of age, but like again, the experience that she's able to translate through her writing, through the sound of her voice, through the way she's delivering her voice, it is so seasoned, I mean, it's so like just vintage, it's so
Yeah,
Amy.
she's like a veteran in this shit, you know, from a young age. It's crazy.
It's like
So
I listen to her music in black and white. It is kind of like that's how she should be
right.
seen,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. No,
hmm
it's very much like underground, like speakeasy music. That's what it
Yeah,
feels like.
exactly.
Like you would just see her on stage just solo doing her thing, you know, and
Yeah.
everybody's dressed in suits and ties and all dappered up and shit.
No,
So
but when Amy comes on, they all loosen their ties and they're
yeah, yeah,
unbuttoning their
yeah.
cuffs and shit.
Yeah.
And they're like, all
They're
right,
like,
let's
all right,
loosen up.
we're about to
hmm
get active. We're
Hell
about to get
yeah.
active.
Hell yeah. hmm
Um, so just a little bit of the background. After signing with Island Records in 2002, Winehouse released her debut album Frank on 20th of October 2003. After that, this is her second album, obviously released in 2006. Open to, obviously, it's critically acclaimed, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to know what your top tracks are.
So first off, I'll give my honorable mention because this didn't make it to my top tracks, but like, what a fucking cool and lovely song to end this album with is "Addicted." It's a song for the weed smokers. I had no idea, because like Amy and I learned this from the documentary too, and also digging into the lyrics on this album. Like Amy loved to smoke some weed, but she also
Nice.
drank a lot,
Respect.
which is
Yeah.
like so. And that's what ended up killing her was just her decline and straight up into alcoholism. And it's like I wish that we would have overpowered that alcohol because then who knows where we're at. But like,
Right.
I love that song, and it's so like such a if you've ever been in a relationship with someone else who does drugs with you, it's like there is this kind of catch 22 that comes with that because of dependency and things like that. And so there's a couple songs in this album that kind of highlight that. Addicted is one. You get yours, I'll get mine.
Yep.
And then so my second track, I'm kind of jumping around, but this is all grouped together. But Tears Dry on Their Own is a such an interesting tempo switch in this album for me. I found that really interesting, and it was almost like because this album is very dark. There are lots of there's lots of heartbreak in it, but Tears Dry on Their Own seemed like a uplifting track, almost like a
Yeah.
I got this track.
Yeah.
Another top track of mine is Wake Up Alone. Wake Up Alone is very slow and like almost like dreamlike to me. It's like I just wrote like slow dance in the dark to this song. So like there's not a lot that I can recall directly from the track, but it was more of the mood. Like Amy Winehouse is a mood and it's ever changing. But like to go from Tears Dry on Their Own, which is very upbeat or just more upbeat in comparison to the rest of the album, into Wake Up Alone, it just feels like a dream, just like a
Yeah.
flowy dream. Um,
Yeah.
the number one track I have on this album is Back to Black. It
Really?
is, yeah. It feels like this track is like I call it the slippery slope. You know, whether she's fallen into depression or fallen into just this kind of dark hole of emotion that happens when you leave a relationship. Because this is what this album is. It's her how to deal with a recent breakup. You
Right.
know, and this was the back and forth track that I found very like there's conflict within it. You know, it's like you go back to her and I go back to insert wherever she's going, right?
Right.
There's a line that says you love blow and I love puff. It's like very back and forth, you know. It also felt like a funeral procession towards the end of the track. There's like a breakdown maybe in the last like minute and a half, and it doesn't last long, but it felt like a death of some sort. So like I said, the Back to Black feels like a slippery slope track to me, but I love it for what it is. You know,
Yeah.
because to put it like for artists like her, you know, Kurt, Chris, like all these guys who we lost, Mac, they put themselves wholly into their music, and that's so admirable. And it, I can only imagine it brings up this vulnerability because, like, yeah, you put yourself out there, and you know you're just expressing yourself, but the way it resonates with the world is so like it's hard to put into words. It's so climactic. It's so
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah.
But what a ride this album was. And like I said, there's more good to talk about on my end than negative. But I had a blast with this.
Yeah, and speaking about like how big it was, it sold, let's see. So it sold 3.58 million copies in the UK alone, and the album has sold over 16 million copies worldwide. So obviously, those are some big fucking numbers,
Yeah,
man.
I think it won
Like,
five Grammys too.
yeah,
Um, so like, and funny thing about the Grammys was that at that time, so she's from the UK, Amy is, and the time of the Grammy ceremonies, I from the doc says that she was not permitted into the US at that time, for whatever reason. And so they did a satellite show where she was performing in London and they were
yeah,
filming
yeah,
it and then
yeah,
they streamed it into the UK and then they announced her Grammy, you know, that way. But again, it just goes to show that should have been the way I think Amy should have been perceived as is a small side lounge show that could be
right,
teleported or streamed anywhere, right?
right,
But like you got to keep the numbers down because people are too fucking dumb to
yeah,
be in
true,
massive crowds listening to that type of music, you know, like it's
right,
not for that. Like so she played Glastonbury. Glastonbury is like multiple hundreds of thousands of
yeah,
people. You're
yeah,
just asking for trouble, you know. And
right,
like I find it so hard to like swallow when artists like her are put on such a platform when in reality the art is amazing, but like again you're just shoveling it down people's throats. And that was really I'll talk about it during my bottom tracks, but like that is such a catalyst for failure, you know, and not
right,
like commercial failure, but like internally emotional failure.
yeah,
I mean, you could look at these artists who, you know, whether they took their own life or they struggle with themselves, like they're all peaking or on the verge of peaking, and it's like the industry just swallows them.
right. Just just fucking sucks them up and swallows them whole. And like, I
Yes.
can't imagine. I mean, you look at artists that even artists that came out alive, like Eminem is a prime example, and obviously I know I talk about him a ton, but like his drug addiction, very much. There's a funny moment where he when he did his 60 minutes when he was coming back after relapse when he was releasing recovery, he went on like a hard press tour for that, and he did a 60 minutes with Anderson Cooper, and they were getting prepped for a show in Detroit, and he asked him, he's like, "Can you see the people up front?" And Eminem goes, "Now I can." He goes, "But earlier it was just it's just
The
a big
blur.
blur, right?"
Mhm.
Because it's like you don't. I can't imagine someone like Amy who's clearly very like emotionally sensitive, right? And being a child thrust into this like superstar fame and then having to perform in front of hundreds of thousands of people, right? That's like, how are you ever, even if you do live up to those expectations that they put before you, first off, media in general, especially music media, builds you up to see you fail. That's why they build you up, right? But like, even if
Drama.
she did live up to those expectations, like in her own head, she probably never was, right? It was
Right.
probably a constant internal battle of like, it's not enough where I'm at, and I think that kind of exacerbated her drinking and her drug use. And and it's what's funny is I can talk about it now because I don't really have it on either one of my lists, but like the most popular song on this album is Rehab, right? Like that's the most, probably the most famous Amy Winehouse song. And like,
Right.
it's like an upbeat song about her being like, I don't care how much you tell me I need help, I'm not fucking doing it.
Right.
So I'm in
Right.
this on my own, and that's like, you and I have been around a lot of people that have had issues, right? I've had my own issues, and like those people, you're not going to get help unless you have determined that you need help, right? And Amy, I think in her head was like, I don't need help. This is fine. This is how I'm going to do things, and it led to her downfall. But I don't place that entirely on Amy, right? Like I think there was too much weight put on her shoulders as a child, and that's kind of the outcome of it a lot of the times, unfortunately. But you
Yeah.
can hear it in her music, right? Like it's especially in this album.
Yeah, I agree.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's like, I mean, it's hard to say, because again, we've obviously not been in that position, and the people who we've surrounded ourselves with, we're very, emotionally connected and very vocal when folks need help. But again, it is hard to say what somebody's going through unless you're that person. But
Right.
but Amy being in the public eye, she deteriorated in front of everyone, which is just it's in slow motion. It's just heartbreaking because like,
Yeah.
again, like I had to make sure that the documentary I was watching was purely the making of the album, because I didn't want to. I've heard her life story, and it's like it's very hard.
Tragic,
It's
right?
hard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for my top tracks, I actually have a little bit of a spoiler alert. I don't have any of the big name songs on here, which I didn't expect going into it. Like I said, this album took me for a ride, man. I got there's a lot of surprises. But number 3 for me and Mr. Jones.
Hell yeah.
So soulful, and like you said, like very much a relationship song. And what better opening than What Kind of Fuckery Is This, which is like essentially the first part of the song, which is so good. But like I just love this is the type of song that you and I were talking about, like where she belongs in an underground bar or a small venue with 100 people. Like this is what I picture in my mind. Like if Amy were still alive, this is what I see her playing, to this day. And wherever she is now, that's what I picture her playing, to a small room, right? To really get that intimate vibe. So I love that song, man. And the instrumentation, like it's a slow, like it's just a slow little head nod. Just it has that very prominent kind of downbeat to it that you can kind of just ride along to.
So this is one of the Salam tracks. So like again, there's no big band behind her. It's very stripped down to just again showcase Amy. And yeah, I wrote Slick and Sassy next to this track. I mean, that is it.
Exactly.
They tried to get her to change fuckery, I think, too. And she was again like,
like,
what do you mean? Like
this is
what
fuckery.
It is.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And then number 2 for me is Tears Dry on Their Own, Just Like You.
Yeah.
This song is like, I love the music in this song, dude. Even if it like, I could listen to an instrumental version of this track and love it. I wouldn't love it as much because Amy adds such like a nice kicker to it. Like her voice and the way she rises instrumentation is so nice. But the upbeat in the there's like a tick 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 from the drumsticks in there that like is throughout the whole song that I just really really like. And I don't know, it is there's a few upbeat songs on here, right? But I think this kind of takes the cake in terms of the way the instrumentation works. It kind of ebbs and flows. There's highs and lows to it, and then her voice is it's fucking beautiful, man. It's perfect in this song. And then my number 1 song, Love Is a Losing Game. God, so good. And it's like, you know what? Look, it's a sad song and it's slow, but this perfectly encapsulates Amy. Like her emotional maturity, the things that, and I don't know what she had experienced up to this point, you know, and I don't know a lot about Amy's life, and I would love to know more about it. But it's so thought provoking and so powerful, and she just was so wise beyond her years, and like you can hear it throughout the whole album, but this song in particular, I think, just really highlights that. And Amanda and I were riding around earlier, and I just put on the album, and I told her this was my favorite song, and she was like, "It's really good, but like I don't know why it's your favorite." And I was like, "I don't know, just like it strikes a chord, right? Like love is a losing game. It is what it is, but you still like." The funny thing about it, and kind of what she talks about in the song, is like it's a losing game, but like you're in it for the ride anyway. That's what love is, right? Like it hurts. It doesn't matter if it's a significant other or a family member or a friend, right? There's going to be heartbreak there, but it's worth taking part in that. And I think it's just, you know, all around a great fucking song. So, and then like some honorable mentions for me. I mean, there's a ton on here. Back to Black is great. Rehab, as much as like Rehab has been played to death, right? If people talk about Amy Winehouse, they're gonna play Rehab, but still great. It's a fucking pop, and it's a hell of an intro too. It's like strap in, we're about to have a ride, you know. And she's very open and honest in that song, as well as the whole album. And then I think Addicted is a great closer too. So very, very good. Like I said, I gotta tell you, Anthony, like I picked the album, but like I went into it blind apart from really Rehab. And I was just I can't say enough good things about this album. So
yeah.
But now into a much harder portion. What are your bottom tracks?
I mean, really the only angle I could take was the Rehab has been pushed down my throat for years and years and years on
That's
end.
fair.
You know? I mean, like it to the point where it's like, again, my brain does this thing where like I start to create blocks in there. So like Rehab started the album, and I found myself just like, let's get through it, and then go to the like then it's like, all right, now we're in a clean slate again.
Right.
Because I know Rehab is a great track, and I love how much energy it does have, and just what she's saying is so like, again, go fuck yourself. Like I got this, right?
Right.
But the only reason is just the commercialism behind it. You know, like I said, that track really just got thrown around everywhere. But again, maybe that's a way, you know, it's like if you could look at that track through the lens of like interpreting it as a way to say I'm not okay, right? But but again, I think it got turned into a whole different media storm just from the pure success of it because it's catchy, right?
Right.
But that's my only, you know, gripe with anything that this album is just that track just got turned into everything for everybody, and it's like, man, there's so much more goodness here.
Yeah, and that's what's so funny about, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but that's what's so funny about like whoever chooses the singles, like what singles are going to be the singles, whether that's the artist or the labels, like it's so funny to me because I feel like so many times they pick the wrong fucking song. Like this is not even close to the best song on the album, and I get like they're factoring other things into it, right? But like that to me is really funny because Rehab is not even close to the best song on this album, but I also get like the radio appeal to it, right? That pulls people in to listen to the album.
Yeah, the replayability for Rehab is like infinite, and I guess it's safe to say
we have seen.
They went as far as they could and kept going, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But like if you were to play, I mean, I want to hear your bottom tracks too, but just a side question, like if you were going to play a song to kind of highlight Amy, you know, what are you picking? Like, what are you picking from this album?
Does it has to be from this album? Okay,
I would say this is like the best like translation of Amy.
I would pick either Back to Black or Tears Dry on Their Own. I think so but too. Like I have a better song that we'll get into later that I think would be a better fit.
We're talking B-side.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about that.
But yeah, so bottom tracks for me, like again, man, I did this thing where like now I know Trey, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for telling you so many times that you had to have bottom tracks because I found myself searching, like just trying to pick something that I could use as a bottom track, and I couldn't find anything because
Hell yeah.
that speaks to the album, right? And like I will say, so one of them, and this isn't a bottom track, but Some Unholy War, and we'll get into this later. There's a down tempo version on disc 2, and I think the down tempo version is a lot better, oddly enough. So like if I could just swap those two, that's what I would do. And then kind of the same thing you touched on with Rehab, right? Like my gripe with it is that's been the Amy song for so long that they've used it for everything they possibly could. And it is what it is. They got to pick their single, but like there's so much more to her. There's so much more to this album, and like they just, god damn, they ran that song into the ground, dude.
Yeah.
I remember late 2000s going into early 2010s, like it was just Rehab. You just heard it fucking everywhere.
Right.
So that kind of kills the appeal a little bit. But other than that, like I don't have anything else, dude. Like, and I wanted to. Like I listened to the album, I was like, like I could put this on there, but I was like, that doesn't really make sense because I really like the song. So
right.
it is one of those things,
Yeah, everything fits, But
yeah,
but I wholeheartedly agree with that. Some Unholy War, Swapperoo. That would have been like, I mean, this album, like I said, is already beyond solid, but that
right.
swap does. I think Amy is meant to be slow. Like just darkness, in the best way.
For sure. Well, so before we get into ratings, Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time, where do you think it falls? I will tell you, it falls between 100 and number 1. It's somewhere in there. I'll give you 100 album gap.
Okay, so, well, how about I'll go under 50. I'll say 42. 42.
Woo! Really fucking close. It's 33.
Oh shit.
33.
Damn.
And they say this album documents an incredibly tumultuous time in the life of the ill-fated singer Amy Winehouse. The 10 years following her death, indeed July is 10 years, believe it or not, the extent of her influence has become incredibly apparent, which I think is very true. And I like you said, good for her, man. 33 out of 500 albums, that's fucking crazy, man.
Super well deserved for like a 36-minute album too.
Right, and like, a very like it's a very niche type of music, right? Like it attracts a very certain type of music listener. Like it's simple, it's a female singer, it's a, like you said, it's the time that it was made doesn't match the time of the music, which I think is interesting. So for it to be held in that high regard, I think is great. Now something that's really interesting. So we're gonna get into the reviews from Pitchfork and Rolling Stone, and I think they've gone back and changed their top 500. So this could have been before, could have been after. I don't know how it goes, but Rolling Stone gave it a 3 out of 5. And I can't read it because I'm fucking paywalled, so I can't read the actual review, which is great.
That's the Rolling Stone, right?
Yeah, classic. And then Pitchfork, you can take a guess at Pitchfork. So Pitchfork is out of 10.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
God. So, all right. Well, I'm going with what I think they gave it, which I'll just say a 6. Did they give it a 6?
Pretty fucking close. It's a 6.4.
It's a 0.4.
Which is just like, and we cannot, for those of you that may be just listening for the first time, the basis of this podcast was to shit on Rolling Stone and Pitchfork, like their way they review music and their reviews. So I just want to say, like, that's pretty indicative of what we would expect from them. So apart from their ratings, what do you have out of 10? What are you rating?
So I'm giving this a 9.5, and the only reason why I can't give it that full 10 is I'm not going to say because I want more, because this album is so sweet and it's so digestible and it's so what it is, right? I give it a 9.5 because of the Some Unholy War swap that could have been done, and because of shit, I had another thought, but now I'm forgetting it. Yeah.
Was it Rehab? Was it the fact that Rehab ran into the fucking ground?
It's not that. It was just another thought that just jumped in my head. But either way, just because of the type of music, like it's not like a I'm listening to this everyday album type of thing. You know, it's a mood setter, or you got to be in that mood to take it in, right? So that's why I give it a 9.5, just because of the replayability. For me, is not like I can turn it on at any moment kind of album, but for what it is, it's perfect for what it is.
Yeah, no, that's very fair. I hate to just like be so basic and just agree completely, but yeah,
It's
9.5.
what it
Like,
is.
and I can't. I am standing. I have been standing so hard this past week. Like, it's just, and I can't wait to talk about the disc 2 of the deluxe album. But like, she was, may she rest in peace. She was so special, and this album is so special. And I hate, this happens a lot where like I listen to something and I'm so mad at myself for not listening to it earlier. And I wish, like, if I could have had this in my rotation for the past several years, I would have, right? And I had that opportunity, and that's part of the, the best part about this podcast is our ability to listen to these things that we normally wouldn't have listened to. And it's just phenomenal through and through. It's so good.
Right.
And like, it's as close to a perfect album, I think, as you're going to get from this type of artist, right? And it's beautiful, it's soulful, and man, rest in peace, Amy. I just wish, like, and I know she only made 2 albums, right? And it's very similar to Kurt, right? He only made 3. Like, what they could have done
Right.
moving forward had they been able to escape their own demons. So that is unfortunate, but we got a gem in the meantime, and we got so lucky that we are gifted with this music. So yeah, 9 out of 10. Can't say enough good stuff about it.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about disc 2. There's not, there's only 8 songs on here. There's a demo version of Love Is a Losing Game. There's the down tempo version of Some Unholy War. There's some other tracks in here. And then there's a live at BBC Radio version of Valerie. So
Yeah.
what did you think of disc 2?
Dude, I enjoyed it big time. You know, it's very diverse in its track selection, because I think there's an acoustic version of this album out there, or at least like acoustic renditions of a lot of the tracks. But yeah, I enjoyed it because it really highlights the diversity of Amy. Like, there's some calypso kind of more, I guess,
Yeah.
upbeat vibes to some of these tracks. There's a reggae kind of track. There's an acoustic ballad. The demo is cool. Um, uh, Monkey Man, I thought was hilarious. Like, I wrote
Yeah.
up tempo carnival track. Is this all a joke? Like, is she joking about men calling them monkeys? But one of my favorites besides Some Unholy War, and I love to know him is to love him, but Cupid is like fucking cool as shit, because she's writing a letter to Cupid on like, help me out, like,
Yeah.
she's like,
Come
come on,
on,
like, just
throw
do
me
your
a
thing.
bone, man.
Yeah, so do your thing. But I love that track, Cupid.
Yeah. No, that's very fair. Yeah, so what I was gonna say earlier was, if I were to show one song to somebody, it would be this version of Valerie. Like,
Oh
this
wow.
Valerie itself is a great song. Like, it's that's another one of Amy's like most popular songs. But the BBC version, dude, her voice, she's letting it fucking rip, man. And like, you can just, those highs and lows that she does, the vibratos, and like, just, she has so much passion in it, and I love this song. But the BBC version is like miles ahead of the normal version. So I think it's so good.
Where was the normal version? I'm trying to look up where it came from. Was it released as a single, or was it on another album?
That I don't know. It may have been something that was released.
Or it
No,
might
because
be a cover.
she performed it. She performed it at the BBC, so she was still alive when she
So
performed it.
it's a cover by the band called the Zootons.
Interesting.
So like, that's another thing that I got from the documentary, was like, Amy's taste in music was so vintage. It was so these old pop bands, that are just like very. Like, she's just a one of a kind, as far
Yeah.
as her taste and the way she expressed herself, and then the way she performed and wrote and created is just super, super cool.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think like there's a lot of good in these in this disc too. And what's funny is like, so Monkey Man to me, like I listened to it too. I was like, what's going on here? Like, is what kind of mariachi ass
Yeah,
music
yeah.
is this, man? You know, like it was very interesting. But it was like there's a lot of different tempo changes in these I guess B-sides, if that's what you call them. And I thought Love is a losing game. The demo version was very interesting because it's super stripped down, right?
Yeah,
Like it's basically
yeah.
just her voice, which is really cool to hear kind of that process, and what it became later. But I thought
You
it was really cool that that's the version they have on Spotify, so you get to kind of peek behind the curtain and hear this stuff, you know.
I just had this thought right now because in thinking on how, vintage Amy is, like I am very shocked, and Trey or some other Pretty Lights heads maybe could correct me if there is something out there, but like she is an ideal person that Derek could sample. Like Derek samples all these 50s, 60s vintage kind of like Judy Garland-esque time period vocalist, and like
Right.
Amy was that in 2000s, but like
Right.
can you just imagine the magic they could have made had he had that at, I'm not going to say at his disposal, but as a collaborative
Right.
artist, like
Right.
that could have been something purely magic. But the beauty of technology at this time is now that he could still do that. So like Derek, get on, like just take this
Yeah, come
album and
on.
run with it,
Make it happen,
Yeah,
man. Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
Swirl it
For
up.
sure.
Uh-huh.
All right, well, that was Back to Black, and I think if you've listened to me and Anthony gush about this album and you don't want to listen to it, I will say again, go fucking listen to it if you haven't.
It's shorter than the amount of time we just talked about it.
Yeah,
So
and
right.
and if you have listened to it, go listen to it again because it'll be worth it.
Yeah,
But let's
definitely.
get into rides or dies. So what do you got?
All right, so my ride or dies, another strong female in the music industry. So like I teleport myself back to the '90s, driving around with my mom, and I kept hearing this voice regularly playing through the radio, and it wasn't Celine Dion, it wasn't Shania Twain, it was fucking Alanis Morissette, and she is a badass. And this song too is another thing you referred to this earlier, which was play the instrumental for this track, and it has so much potential to be a banger in its own.
Right.
But I love the way she sings, and it's a mood shift from Back to Black, which is like a heartbreak song, and this is more of like a relationship forming kind of song. It's called Head Over Feet. Like I said, it fucking bangs for me. But it's also kind of a test for you, Blake. So I'm curious to get your opinion, and because Alanis has got some shit we can dig into at some point.
She definitely does, and like Alanis, like, look, man, 90s music is my shit. It's my era, right? I think that's where rock music came into its form, its prime. That is the best era of rock music, only rivaled by the 70s, by the way. Don't fucking talk to me about the 80s, all right? Don't get
Yeah,
me
I
started on
agree.
that tangent.
I agree.
But Alanis is like, she's very 90s, like her voice, her cadence, she's just very 90s. And like if you're not into that type of music, I don't think you're gonna like it, right? 90s music, and I don't know if you what genre would you consider her? Like, would you just consider her rock music, or would you consider her grunge music? Like,
Like female rebel creativity, like it's like Jewel. Like Jewel is an artist who has a super beautiful voice, but also she's raw too. So like, I mean, you just put it in the singer-songwriter kind of category, and you just have to understand, I think, that this is how they are choosing to portray themselves. Like Amy is the same way. Like you could say it's soul R&B, but
yeah,
but this song from Alanis and even the album Jagged Little Pill, it's like very indie, very could be considered partially country, partially pop. It really
yeah,
touches a lot of different
yeah,
angles, I think. But I would just say it's singers. It's like James Taylor. Like, how are you going to categorize him as an
yeah,
acoustic
yeah.
songwriter?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, and I gotta give it a rides, right? Like I
Hell yeah,
said, my
hell
type
yeah.
of music, and I would love. We should dig into an Alanis album
Yeah.
and kind of listen to the whole thing because I never have, but this is very much in my lane. But I can see why people wouldn't like it. I will say that. So I
Yeah.
understand why, like, you know, people like it. But yeah, hard rides for me for sure.
Hell yeah.
Good
Hell
pick,
yeah.
good pick, and good
Yeah.
departure. Like another female artist, but in a different lane, different vein for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool.
Beautiful.
All right, so for mine, I got A Tear in Space by Glass Animals. So Glass Animals is coming out with a new album July 19th, so here in a few weeks. Glass Animals, I have had a very interesting relationship with. I love all of their albums. So Zaba, How to Be a Human Being, and Dreamland, and I've seen them a number of times. I didn't really know who Glass Animals was until I saw them at Bonnaroo 20. It was a while back because the other wasn't a stage at that point. It was still a tent because I saw them at the other tent. So that was a while back. That was around Zaba time. So probably 2014, 2015. And I just like, I saw them again much later after How to Be a Human Being came out, where they're a lot bigger. They were on the Witch stage. So they've had, you know, a good career progression, but such an interesting sound. Zaba in itself, now that I'm looking at this, like I'm thinking like we got to do Zaba sometime soon because Zaba is really good, and they have a super, like, this song doesn't really highlight it. So if you haven't listened to Glass Animals before, they're just very psychedelic and very weird, and they got weird sounds, and I love their lead singer's voice. And but yeah, I wanted to show this one because I don't want to send any more Eminem songs. He just came out with one, and we have an album coming up that we're gonna have to review. So I wanted to highlight somebody else who's coming out with an album.
Nice.
So I chose this by Glass Animals. But what did you think? Had you listened to him before? Was this your first dip into it?
My relationship with Glass Animals is like literally 2 tracks. It's the a track called Gooey. Isn't there a track called Gooey?
Yep.
Somebody sent me at one point, and then this one. So like I'm not versed in Glass Animals, so I was gonna say bring an album at some point so I can go there, because like I'm very much on the outside looking in and I don't get it. You know,
Okay.
so like there's a bigger picture here, because how packed was that show at Bonnaroo?
It was fucking slammed.
Right? Like,
both of them
the
were
tent.
slammed. Yes.
So like people resonate with them, and I get that, but personally for me it doesn't resonate with me. So like I said, there's got to be something that I'm missing, whether it's hearing, I'm only getting pieces of the picture, you know.
Yeah.
So, and the singer's voice is, it does like,
it's an acquired taste.
Yes,
I will say that.
okay.
It's
So
an acquired taste.
Best way to put it is that it's not hitting my taste buds just yet. You know,
It's
a little
fair.
sour, and like I want something sweet. So like, I don't know, let's get ooey gooey and go into some weirdness at some point. You know?
Yeah.
So it dies for me right now, but
That's
put
fair.
a pin in it, and we'll see where it goes in time.
Yeah. What I'll do is I'll put Zaba in the back pocket for now. So don't listen to it. We've done this before. Yep. Don't listen to it, and I'll put it in the back pocket, and we'll whip it out at some point for sure.
Okay. Deal.
All right. So we got 2 movies to talk about: Easy Rider and Bikeriders. So Bikeriders, we both went to go see. You told me you saw it first at like a surprise screening, right, or something?
Yeah, actually, that was super cool. So like, AMC is doing this thing. I don't know how often they do it, but it's typically on a Monday night. They'll do it. It's called a Screen Unseen, and they have a horror, scary version. I think they're calling it Scream Unseen or something like that. But either way, you buy a ticket, show up, and you don't know what you're going to see till after the previews and the credits roll. So like, I had no idea what I was going to see, anticipating to see Bikeriders like the following weekend, and title card shows up and I'm like, oh fuck yeah. So
nice, dude.
So it was the surprise thing. Yep. And dude, I had a blast with it. It was for me, it was such a time capsule of a movie that reminded me of a lot of other movies, like Easy Rider, like The Outsiders. You know, it was very much a timepiece of a film, and I had a blast.
Yeah, I thought it was I thought it was great, man. It was, and it made me like, and it was great because like I told you last week, Amanda and I took the bike to the theater, and like we were like, obviously we got to take the bike to the theater, and then like we were riding back, and like it was so much fun. And that movie, like And look, I've been called a diet Kmart Austin Butler before. I'm kind of like
Oh,
I'm kind of like
really?
diet Austin Butler. The bike, the blonde hair, blue eyes, like same vibe. A
No
lot of
helmet.
people, yeah, a lot of people call me that. I'm definitely not just making that up for myself. Like people have definitely called me that. So
Until you start talking, you talk way more than Austin does in Bike Riders.
that's true. He has like 10 lines in that
Yeah.
movie, but I thought it was great, man. It was really entertaining. Tom Hardy, Tom
Yeah.
Hardy is phenomenal, dude. And it's funny is the spoiler alerts for people that have not seen the movie, but
Go see it. Go see it.
yeah, go see it. Pause, go see it, come back.
There you
But
go.
when Tom Hardy gets shot, like I knew immediately that was exactly what was going to happen. Like I just knew like this was going to end poorly.
So that scene is crazy on a lot of different levels because one, like there was a rumble. I call it a rumble. It's kind of like a one-on-one throwdown thing that they did in those times. But like there was one earlier in the movie where he kind of like basically just showed everyone what was up. But then this one comes out and his name is Johnny, right? In the film. And the rumble itself, the setup reminded me so much of The Outsiders. Have you seen The Outsiders?
No.
Okay, then I have to stop everything I'm about to say and save it for when we watch The Outsiders. But there's a lot of parallels between what happens and what happens in The Outsiders. But I can't ruin The Outsiders for you, even though
That's
it's
fair.
like a 40-year-old movie. I'm not going to do it because it's my heart
Yeah.
film. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love Tom Hardy's character. As far as the head honcho, he's trying to like find a way out. But also is like not in it for fuckery, right?
Right.
Shouting out Amy Winehouse. Like there's a lot of fuckery
What
that
kind of
comes with
fuckery is
new,
this, man?
new generation motorcycle clubs brought in a lot of fuckery.
Yeah.
That this movie turns right in that moment, where it goes from old guard to new guard. And it's like people are in it for, I don't want to say more holier than thou reasons, but in comparison, they're not in it to hurt people in a sense.
Yeah.
They're not in it to take advantage of people. But slowly it does become that. That's why I think this movie's so cool.
I think what's really funny is like just that his character for like half the movie is like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. Like, can you please just take it off my hands? Like, I'm done with this shit, bro. It's getting out of hand.
Right.
But like, dude, the sounds in this movie, like the sounds of the engines of the motorcycles, is so good. And like the scene where they're talking to those bikers and Austin Butler's character comes out of nowhere and just fucking punches them in the face and they start fighting. It's such a great scene. Like, and I love what is the main character's name? The girl. Hang on. I'm gonna look up the cast. Kathy. Yeah. So Kathy, like her accent, dude, is just so good. It's so classic Midwestern, and the way she talks was killing me the whole fucking movie. And like Norman Reedus's character, Funny Sonny, the guy that comes from California, is so great. Also, like that scene at the bonfire where he's like, "Oh, they sent me to come find this guy and kill him." Basically, I couldn't tell if it was a joke or if he was being serious. Like, which I loved about that scene. I was like, "Is there's supposed to be tension here, or like, am I formulating it?" But I thought as a whole, like, it was great. And one final thought: I don't know how much they were paying the costume designers for that movie, but they need to be paying them more because the costumes in that fucking movie, they're so 60s 70s bike rider, like it's just perfect. Yeah,
well, like,
it's perfect.
So this the Bike Riders is based on a book. The whole movie is kind of based off of this time period where this guy was interviewing Kathy, over time, like over so many years, about the club, and it's a picture book, so it's not like a novel. It's just photographs, and that's what they use to make this movie. So like everything is time specific. There's there's another podcast. So I'll shout out another podcast called The Big Picture, and they interview directors pretty regularly on there. In a recent episode, they interview the director of the Bike Riders, and it's super spot on as to what you just said. Like they so much attention to detail came in throughout this movie. And yeah, I'm so glad because like when the movie first started, Kathy started talking, and I said, "Oh God, I don't know how distracting this is going to be." But once things start happening, it's like you're transported into
Yeah,
that
you're
time
locked
period.
in.
Like
You're locked in.
you can't avoid it. But also there's other things going on to where like you're not focused on how
Right.
she pronounces a nutter.
Yeah.
One after another. But
So
either way,
good.
it's beautifully done. I
Yeah.
think as
And
far as like the inner workings of a club too, it's very transparent.
I do like how, like, I like that one, they don't tell you the fate of Austin Butler's character.
Right.
Like, you don't really know if he's alive or dead. So Benny is his name,
Right.
and I like that they, at the end you see him like living a happy life, and like I don't know, the movie was it was really cool, and the pictures at the end during the credits
Yeah.
where they showed
Love
the
that.
actual pictures was really interesting. Also, did you notice who was the guy, the reporter taking the pictures?
Yeah, Challenger guy,
It's from
right?
Challengers,
Yeah.
baby. That's our
hmm
boy.
Hell
Nice.
yeah. Hell yeah. He's still rocking it. He's still
Yeah,
doing
it
work
was
out there.
great. It was great, and let me tell you, his vibe in this movie was a lot better than his vibe in Challengers. He
Yeah.
seemed a little more in control, a little less of a
Yeah.
cuck.
He's
So
more
that was
tame.
cool. Yeah,
hmm
yeah, yeah.
He
So
had a
that was
job to do.
nice.
Yeah,
Exactly. So let's get into Easy Rider. Let me tell you something, Anthony.
right. Okay.
I don't know what the fuck this movie is, dude. What is happening in this movie? I don't understand. What was the point? And what was the
So
ending? I don't understand. Like,
yeah.
it just makes no sense to me. And why is the spoiler alert if you haven't
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
Easy
yeah.
Rider?
Yeah.
Why, like, he shoots him in the end and then he says, "What just happened?" Like, what the fuck do you mean, what just happened? You just shot that guy. Like, I don't understand the ending. I don't know what the overarching theme was of this movie. I'm very
How long?
lost, Anthony. Not
Okay.
to say it was a bad movie. I'm just lost. Okay. I'm confused.
It's okay. Yeah, as were they, at the time. So Dennis Hopper, the guy who plays the more slack-jawed biker,
Yeah.
he directed this movie, and him and Peter Fonda, I think, wrote it together in a sense. So that should tell you enough to say like they were doing whatever the fuck they wanted to as far as how they were going to write this movie and portray it. But so let me take you back to where I first saw this movie. So I think it was 2014. Looking at the poster, yeah, 2014. Bass Nectar plays in Madison Square Garden. So me and two other people said, "Fuck driving there. Let's take a train." So we took the train from
Nice.
from Tuscaloosa, actually, all the way to Madison Square Garden, literally right underneath the Amtrak.
Yeah.
And that was such a cool fucking experience. But then also, I thought perfect way to watch this movie. So I watched it on a train, and I had the same interpretation after the first time I watched it. I was like, "The fuck is like what is happening? What is going on?" So this, I'll say, after multiple views, I've started to put the pieces together. And I mean, in reality, this is a travel movie. They're traveling from California
Right.
to New Orleans to go to Mardi Gras. That's the overarching like theme. But then you break down all the little side tangents they take pretty much throughout the movie, and that's what makes a travel movie so interesting, right? Because you're hitting destinations, you're going from New Mexico to Arizona to Texas
Yep.
to like to Louisiana. So like the path they're taking, and then it's just the experiences that you run into being from California, slowly integrating into this other culture. Because like in the '60s, I mean, there's worlds apart, even though they're a few hours away, right?
Right.
Culturally speaking.
Yeah.
But there are trends throughout this movie that I think are really fucking cool, that do highlight cultures coming together, which is the campfire scenes.
Yep.
There's like multiple campfire scenes throughout this movie that have conversations between the bikers and whoever else is attending, whether it's the hitchhiker, whether it's a shaman, whether it's some random person, right? Another thing that's really interesting are the dinner scenes. There's like multiple dinner scenes where people are sitting down and having a meal together, right? And it's like the bare essentials of life, are feeding, but also it's a thing that everyone can kind of come together on. So I
Yeah.
found those being really cool, where they go to the commune and they're all eating
Yeah.
together, right? So there's lots of nuanced scenes, like the skinny dipping scene, and
Yeah.
there's a scene in the middle of the film where the guy who was with them, who kind of, I guess, runs the commune, gives them LSD. And he
Yep.
says, like, like, you'll know when the time's right to take this. And then when they do take it in the cemetery in Louisiana, you realize that's not the place
Not
to
the
take
right
it.
time to take it.
No, but they show it, and it's like, that is a great representation of potentially what it would be like for two people who are not in the right headspace. Actually, four people, because the two prostitutes are with them. It's like four people taking LSD in a place that is highly psychedelic and dark, also in a headspace that's not good.
Right.
It showcases itself in that way.
Yeah.
But the landscapes throughout this film are beautiful, and also, to me, foreign, because I haven't been to that part of the country. So, like,
Yeah.
I want to do this in reverse. Like, I want to travel from Louisiana to California at one point in time and hit the places, because everything that they encounter, I guess, besides the actual families and the communes, like, they hit landmarks, like real gas stations, real sights to see. So I would love to do that at some point.
it was really interesting, and like, obviously the bikes are great. The problem is like, with movies up until like the mid 80s, and even like even kind of into the 80s, the sound in movies like is not good. Like, the sound design, like like, I had to turn, and I normally turn subtitles on anyway, but like, I turn subtitles on because the audio is just so chalked, bro. Yeah, it's just like bad, and I know it's not their fault, right? They're limited to the times of when they're making the movie, but like, I just, even looking back at, like, when you go watch like the original Friday the 13th, and those are like 80s movies, right? And those are great slasher movies, great horror movies, but like, the sound just gets to me, and like, it was so distracting to me. But like, there were, like you said, the landscapes are great, and like, it is very much, now that you say that, like, it is very much a travel movie, which is fun to watch. It's super interesting, and I don't know, it's I got very, very heavy Anthony vibes from it. I was like, yeah, travel, like LSD, there's some weird shit going on. I can't really tell what direction this is going. This seems like an Anthony movie, So I thought that was good, and I enjoyed it, but I don't know. I think, like, I don't want to say I should have watched a trailer beforehand, even if there is a trailer, but like, I feel like it would have given me a clear direction as to what I was walking into. It took me by surprise, but it was still like, I made it to the movie. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to turn this off. It's not like it was a bad movie. It was just kind of like, what the fuck is going on here, man?
It's
like,
another reason why there's two side reasons why you had to watch it. One is because this movie influenced bike riders tremendously. From a shot standpoint, from a highlighting motorcycle culture standpoint, it's just necessary viewing. This is like an indie film, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, very minimal cast, very minimal production. I mean, like, it could use 2024 remastered version, and that may even exist out there. But I totally agree with you on the production side of things. But it also introduces some cool things. Like, I don't know if people would see it as cool or if see it as like gimmicky, but the transitions. There's I call it just like a flash transition, where it show you something and
like,
bring
back
you back,
and forth, back and forth. Yeah.
Does that ring any bells to you? Because I know you've seen it in another film, but I wanted to bring this to you because this was the origin of it.
I don't know, but off the top of my head.
Okay, so when you go back and watch X, you will see. No, I'm sorry. Fuck, I don't know if it's X or Pearl now. I'll find out tomorrow.
Anthony, you're supposed to be like the X-Pearl expert. What are you doing?
Dude, my head is so swamped into like Maxine. I'm so excited for Maxine. But I want to say it's X, where they cut back and forth between transitions. Because Pearl just doesn't strike me as that. Either way, I mean, I could dig in my notes and find out for sure, but it's one of the two. Either way, go watch all of them, because Maxine comes out this weekend, right?
Nice.
But again, either way, whichever film it comes from, it's homage to Easy Rider because of those kind of choppy cuts back and forth. Like I said, it's disorientating. This whole film is disorientating. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
from
true.
the amazing soundtrack to the crazy
The
shit.
I will say the soundtrack was fucking
Yeah,
fire. I
right.
meant to note that the soundtrack is so good, and Jack Nicholson. Jack
Yeah,
Nicholson
right.
is a weirdo in everything that he does, but man, he's so good at this
He
movie.
does it
And
well.
young Jack Nicholson is so interesting because, like, in my mind, all I picture with Jack Nicholson is The Shining, and so like to
Mm.
see him even younger
Oh yeah.
was really interesting. So yeah, soundtrack fire, Jack Nicholson fire.
Mhm.
So there were some highlights to this movie for sure.
Yeah.
But it was
The
just
ending.
one of those movies that
I think
was
the ending is very much like a thing that will divide people. You know, I think the ending is very divisive from an emotional standpoint because, like, you've been on a ride already up to the point where they take LSD in Louisiana, but then they're just fucking going home, right?
yeah
They're just going back, and two fucking hillbillies in a pickup truck who don't give a fuck, you know, who are just trying to do some dumb shit. Like, they says they're trying to scare them, and then they fucking blast away, and then they
yeah
blast away again, and it's like, what the fuck was
yeah,
that?
and
You
then
know, I
and
forget
then it
about
just
that ending.
ends, and I'm like, oh, word, okay,
Yeah, what, you know?
yeah,
So like, that is I think that is kind of the stamp on the end of this movie, was like, you never fucking know,
yeah,
right?
true,
When you're out on the road, I mean, the road is dangerous, especially for those guys back then. Counterculture was not accepted, and it's very
yeah.
clear. They walk into that restaurant in Louisiana, and everyone literally is just like staring at them to the point where they're like, maybe we should
You
just
should
like
get
up and go,
the fuck
right?
out of
Which is
here, yeah.
just so fucked, but that's real back
Yeah,
then.
yeah, true, very true. All right, so next week you got album.
Got
What
the
do you
album.
got?
All right, so I'm gonna let you take a guess. I'll show you in a moment. We'll do a reveal, but this album is my first album I ever purchased on vinyl, and it rings true to some themes we've talked about already. But I'll just take a random guess.
Can you give me a genre?
Rock. I mean, like,
Hang on. Let's play
okay,
a little
okay,
20 questions. Is it what
okay,
era is it 70s era?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is it Dark Side of the Moon?
No.
Fuck. All right, what is it?
Okay, so Are
Oh,
You
all
Experienced
right.
Jimi Hendrix Experience?
I
So
was close. I knew
you
it
were
was
close.
70s. I knew
Yeah,
it was
you were
psychedelic.
70s.
Yeah.
But another entry into the 27 Club, right?
Yep.
Badass guitarist. He hasn't been on the podcast, so yeah, he'll get his time to shine. Him and the
Fuck
crew.
yeah. Fuck yeah, I
Mhm.
love it. Okay, so
What
movie.
movie?
So I told you that this week was gonna tie into next week. So we're gonna do we gotta do two things. We're gonna do A Quiet Place Part One, the first movie, the very first
Oh,
movie, Quiet Place, that came out. So we're gonna watch and review that, and we can talk about A Quiet Place
both.
Day One a little bit if we want to. And there's three total, but I want to
Mhm.
watch the first one, and then
Have you seen the first one?
I've
Like
seen all of them. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And then but I'm gonna rewatch. I haven't seen it since it came out, which I think was, I don't know, 6 years ago.
Feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, so I'm gonna watch that, and then obviously we both need to watch Maxine, and then we'll
Yes.
do an aside for Pearl X Maxine. So
Hell yeah.
we'll
Hell yeah.
do A Quiet Place during the episode, and then we'll do an aside for obviously the Ty West Mia Goth trilogy.
Extravaganza, the
Yeah,
showcase. I mean,
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
fucking everything's about to
And
happen.
just so everybody knows, if you don't know Anthony well enough, if this is your first episode, the aside is going to be longer than the fucking podcast episode. If I know Anthony well enough, so strap in for the aside.
Yeah.
So
Again, I want to encourage the viewers, go rewatch Pearl, go rewatch X, then go take in this new
yeah,
because she's a fucking star.
yeah.
She is.
So I knew that I knew obviously the Maxine stuff you were going to watch, but have you seen Quiet Place, the first one?
Yeah. I saw it in theaters, and like I said, it's a experience to be had. So go see this new one in theaters too. It's a very interesting tale, and then we'll go back in time and see what John Krasinski's up to.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Well,
before we sign off, let the viewers know we got YouTube is fully functioning now, so everything should be on YouTube, Facebook as well. Instagram's going hot. We got Twitch.
Please, I put it in all of the episode notes. Our Instagram is in there. It's Totally Biased Co with some underscores in there to space out the letters. YouTube, I think, is what Totally Biased Media. or Totally Biased Music,
It
one
might
or
be
the
Totally
other.
Biased Music, and then Totally Biased Media on Facebook. Everything is intertwined, so you might
Yeah.
have to dig for some verbiage.
Find
to
one. You'll
verify,
see the
but
links to others. I'll start putting links down in the description. And then right now we're streaming on my Twitch, which is Pull Jazz Sucks, but we'll probably make a TBM Twitch here shortly. But yeah, if you
And
want to watch the episodes live every time we do it, and, you know, we might start. What we need to do is start putting that on Instagram when we're going live.
once we know, yeah,
Yeah, but
we have to get a schedule. But
yeah, exactly.
also, listeners and viewers, if you have album suggestions or movie suggestions, or if you want to come and talk about your art that you're talking about, whatever your music or your album that you want to bring on the podcast, I think we're open to that. So any
Yeah,
suggestions
100%.
you got, or if you think we all should get better microphones and cameras, let us know. So,
Which I'm sure will be a suggestion, 100%, knowing my audio, but whatever, you know, we're making do with what we can. So,
right, we're biased as fuck. So bring on your suggestions, bring on your comments, and we'd love to hear from you.
Exactly. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Anthony, thanks for joining, and we will see you guys next week.
Yes, sir.